Hey there, welcome to my review for Death on the Nile. So, Death on the Nile is another adaptation of the famous whodunit novel of the same name, written by the renowned mystery writer Agatha Christie. This serves as a bit of a follow up to the 2017 adaptation of another Agatha Christie novel, Murder on the Orient Express. Once again, this is directed by and starring Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot, who is the star detective of Agatha Christie's mystery novels. Now, I am 100% the target audience for a film like this. I absolutely love the whodunit genre. I've read a number of Agatha Christie's novels, including this one and Murder on the Orient Express. I've also read a number of the Robert Pattinson written novels starring the Alex Cross detective. It's just a genre that I love. You know, Knives Out back in 2019 was one of my favorite movies of that year, and it's a real comfort movie that I've gone back to many times in the last couple of years. So that can work both for and against this movie because I'm definitely who they're marketing this movie for, and I'm the person that they want to go see this. But at the same time, I might be a little bit more upset if things aren't done great. But let me tell you, this movie does a lot of things great. I think that it's a lot of fun. I think that they do a good job of keeping this mystery fresh. You know, I think that that's really the most difficult task for a movie like this. You're dealing with a story that is about 80 plus years old. Hundreds of thousands of people have read this story. They know how it goes. So how do you keep that fresh and keep that engaging for an audience today? And I think that this movie really accomplishes that through a number of different methods. First of all, I think that they've got fantastic casts. You know, Kenneth Branagh is just phenomenal as Hercule Poirot. He kills it as this character, and I think is my favorite representation of that character of all the adaptations that I've seen. You know, he's just great at playing, you know, the kind of neurotic, narcissistic, OCD character and nailing all of those little idiosyncrasies throughout it. And it seems like he's having such a fun time playing him. We also see, you know, return of a character, a Book, who is played by Tom Bateman, and he was great in Murder on the Orient Express, and I think that he's even better here in Death on the Nile. We're also, you know, met with a great supporting cast. We've got people like Gal Gadot, Armie Hammer, Letitia Wright, even Russell Brand in this movie is probably the most surprising performance for me. Now, I am not a fan of Mr. Brand, either professionally as an actor or comedian or personally with some of the comments that he makes. But I do have to give it up to him in this movie. He actually has a pretty good performance. And it's a completely dramatic performance, which is the first that I've ever seen, and I think that he's ever put in. And it worked for him. I would actually like to see him take a more dramatic turn as an actor and see him take on some more roles like this. So, you know, here's to you, Mr. Brand. So, to give an overview on this movie, while on holiday in Egypt, Hercule Poirot runs into his protege, Book, once again being played by Tom Bateman. Now, Book brings Poirot into the wedding celebrations of Lynette Ridgway and Simon Doyle, who are played by Gal Gadot and Armie Hammer, respectively. We soon learn that most every single person in this wedding party has some kind of an axe to grind with someone else in the wedding party, not to mention the bride and groom themselves. As events began to transpire and days go by, we inevitably lead to, as the title indicates, Death on the Nile. But actually, before any of that happens, before we have Poirot meet up with Book, we are introduced to the character in a kind of prequel, so to speak. We get sort of two prologues of a kind of origin story for Hercule Poirot, and this was a fantastic scene. It's set in World War One, and we see Poirot kind of in action serving in that war. And it did two things for me. Of one, get me absolutely excited and thrilled for this movie because it ends on just an absolutely amazing line that's perfect. But two, it makes me want Kenneth Branagh to make a war movie. A World War One movie from Kenneth Branagh, a full feature of that, I think sounds amazing after seeing this opening scene. Shot in black and white, yes please, sign me up. Now, the second prologue we get sort of introduces us to, a handful of our main characters, like Lynette Ridgway and Simon Doyle and Jacqueline de Belfort, and it kind of gives us a little bit of an insight and a first look at the relationships of some of these characters and kind of who they are as people and what to expect from them. Now, something that was a bit of a disappointment for me was definitely the special effects in this movie. It really felt like they needed to spend a little bit more time and or a little bit more money on some of these shots, especially whenever it came to, kind of the grand tracking shot and landscape shots. Whenever the camera really panned out and moved away from all of the action and the characters and we get this background shots, it looked fake. Just to be blunt, it looked fake in a lot of ways. It looked like CG, and it was really disappointing. Especially one moment that stood out was this grand entrance moment for a particular character when they are walking up a set of stairs and we see them from behind walking up, and then we turn and we get a shot of them, head on as their heads just rising up above it with the Egyptian sunset in the background behind them. And it's meant to be this epic moment, and God, does it fall flat. It's just flat because the background doesn't look good. And unfortunately, I get that in a number of different moments throughout this movie, and none of it particularly ruins the movie, but each time it happened, it did pull me out of it a little bit. It kind of broke that, entanglement that it had with me and kind of, severed that magic of the movie theater experience. So that was really a bummer for me. Now, like I said, the big challenge of this movie is how do you make something that has been adapted multiple times, that is such an old story, feel fresh and feel exciting? While I enjoyed the 2017 Murder on the Orient Express, my biggest complaint with it was it really felt like an almost page-for-page adaptation of that novel. And don't get me wrong, Agatha Christie was an amazing novelist, wrote fantastic mystery stories, and there's a reason why she is beloved as she is. But it doesn't mean that you can't put your own flair and own spin on these movies. So we see Kenneth Branagh putting his own kind of spin on this movie very early on when we are introduced to the character of Book. Now, this isn't a new character, but this is a character that's not originally in Agatha Christie's novel. In that, Kenneth Branagh has said he decided to bring him back for this movie because he enjoyed his performance so much in Murder on the Orient Express. So right away, that got me excited to see, things are going to play out a little bit differently. We're bringing in this character that doesn't originally have any place in this story. So it really kind of made me sit up and take a little bit of notice. Now, as events do kind of continue and start to play out, I see parallels between this movie and the original source material. And it did disappoint me a little bit, thinking, we are just going to be getting the same thing again with a lot of these parallel beats. But every time I started to feel that way, there was something new added. There was something fresh that was introduced that it made me take notice, and it made me kind of, wonder, is this actually going differently? And it did take me by surprise each time there was something new. And that was really exciting for me. And if I am telling the truth, whenever we get to the grand moment of Poirot revealing who the killer is, the pinnacle of the movie, I would be lying if I said that there wasn't a little part of me that wondered, is this going to be different? Is it going to be a different killer? Did I miss something? Is this playing out in a different way? And I think that is a success for this movie. Frankly, I think that that's a success for this genre in general. Whenever it comes to the whodunit, it's a very careful balance that you have to take of, kind of leading the audience through the story and leaving enough clues that they can reasonably piece together and figure out who the killer is. But at the same time, you don't want to just make it obvious and make it blatant, because that's not fun. That takes away the excitement and the thrill of the story. And you also don't want to add too many twists and turns and make it so convoluted that whenever we finally get the reveal, it either doesn't make sense or it just feels weak and unearned. I think of it akin to a magic trick, And especially whenever you're adapting a movie like this that has so much history. Ultimately, the audience knows it's not real for a magic trick. They know magic doesn't exist. But the accomplishment is to just for a split second make them think it is. To make them question what they know, question what they believe. And that's what this movie did, and I think that's what it needs to try to do, is it made me just question what I already knew. Wait, did I miss something? Even if I have the answer, it just introduced that little bit of doubt. And I think that's fantastic. That's what a whodunit should be. It keeps that mystery alive, it keeps it fresh, and it keeps it exciting. Now, I won't tell you whether or not it is changed, because I think that that's important for this movie, and I want you to go see for yourself whether you know this story or not. But for me, I think that Death on the Nile changed just enough and played with the story just enough, introducing characters, changing some motivations and the way that things played out, that it makes it feel like its own thing and it justifies its existence and doesn't just feel like another adaptation of a novel and an adaptation that we've gotten before. So for me, I had a great time with Death on the Nile. I think that this is the perfect kind of Saturday, Sunday afternoon popcorn flick that you throw on and you just have a good time with it. You have fun with it. Is the story perfect? Is it executed perfectly? No. There are some issues. There are some plot holes, but nothing that ever really breaks the movie and nothing that ever takes it down. Maybe the pacing could have been a little bit better at moments, but like I said, this makes for just a nice popcorn flick. And personally, one that I really enjoyed and look forward to coming back to. So for me, I give Death on the Nile a B. So let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Death on the Nile. Did some of the scenes with Armie Hammer make you feel as uncomfortable as me, given some of the stuff that we've recently learned about it? Tell me about it. If you like this review, you can like the video and keep up with more reviews. You can subscribe to the channel. You can also follow on Twitter and Instagram at EverymanCritic. If you want to get some more just raw things, you can follow me on Twitter personally, and you can see what I'm watching and keep up with those reviews on Letterboxd at AirBarber. Links for all of those are below in the description. That does it for my review of Death on the Nile. I will be back soon with my next review, but until then, go find your next favorite movie.